Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? I hope everybody can hear us. This is Brian Griffin coming to you from the wonderful Atlanta office. And we also have Miss Denise Jensen with us, and she's going to talk to y'all.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. I hope everybody has had a wonderful Christmas and is having a wonderful beginning to 2016. Not a better way to start the new year than joining us here this morning with our webinar, where you'll be learning a little bit more about the standalone pre-K quality rated pilot, and that's what we're here for today. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into... Okay. Yeah, sorry. If you have any questions, you can type into the chat box area, and Brian will be able to monitor those questions as we go along, and if we have any, we will answer, and then at the end there's also another period where you'll be able to ask questions. So without further ado, we are going to start our webinar. And you'll have to excuse us here. This is the first time that I have actually hosted a webinar, so it's a little bit different being in a room without having an audience to speak to. So the webinar that you're going to be watching today will give you some of the overview about the quality rated pilot. So we'll tell you about quality rated, what this program is, what it means to you as classroom teachers, so that you can understand your role within the pilot and within the program. And we'll also give you a brief introduction to the ECERS-3, which is the instrument that we will use when the assessors come into your classrooms to actually assess the process quality, which we'll be talking about as we move through this presentation. So what I do want you to have handy, though, is a mobile phone that is capable of sending text messages, or a tablet or a smartphone or a computer with internet access, because we are going to be encouraging audience participation. And sometimes when you do a webinar, it can be a little bit like talking to a teenager. You never really know if you're getting any feedback, or wondering if anybody's out there listening, and if they even have an idea of the message is being reached by the target audience. So it can be a little bit intimidating sitting in this room, not being able to look, not being able to see body language. So one of the things that we would like everyone to do is just take a couple of moments to either pull out their phone or their tablet or their browser and join us with audience participation. We will be taking various polls throughout the presentation, and so we do want to get feedback from you, and through the magic of technology we are able to do that. So if you are wanting to use your mobile phone to send a text message in, send a text message, standard rate text messaging does apply. So that means if you have free texts on your plan, then it's free for you. If not, unfortunately, you might want to go to a web browser and be able to participate that way, so that you're not being charged for those text messages. What that will look like here, as you can see on the next screen, if you are going to go into the browser, you want to go into pollev.com/Denise Jensen 269 in order to join the presentation. If you opt to do the text messaging route, what you're going to do is text to 22333 and then Denise Jensen 269. Capital letters do not matter, but spacing and spelling do. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to be able to log on, and this is going to be the moment of truth where we find out if everybody is actually able to do this, and we're going to do our first quick practice poll. Okay, so we are able to poll the first 40 people, so this is kind of a quick off the draw to see who can be first here. Once I activate the next slide, it is going to ask us, or ask you, to tell us what your first name is. So let's see the first 40 people who can either text us their first name, or they can go to their web browser and put in their first name, and we will see how many of us are able to participate in these polls. Whoa!
Oh, that's kind of fun. Look at that go. Yeah. It's all kinds of changes.
So
we got Robin, Miranda.
Nice.
I see Kathleen Hambright, Michelle. Whoa.
Woo, we have a lot of Angelas. This is a word card. We've got several Mirandas.
Oh, so it groups them, so the bigger it gets, yes, the more Angelas you have and the more Mirandas you
exactly. Have. So this is awesome. We get to kind of see who everybody is out there. And we see
kind of
how
fun
many
to watch.
participants. Yeah, so thank you so much for at least practicing with us. So now we know that as we move through the presentation that you'll be able to send in your feedback to us, and we hope that you enjoyed the somewhat interactive nature of this. As we know, webinars, sitting and listening can not always be the most fun thing to do. So we're going to move on, and let me just clear our results from our poll here. And so you might be wondering a little bit about who are these wizards behind the curtain that are talking to you now, coming live from DeKalb, downtown Atlanta, on this beautiful sunny day. So we wanted to give you the chance to at least familiarize yourself with who is speaking. My name is Denise Jensen. I am the Quality Rated Manager. And as you can see, my photo, that's me in the middle there with my two sons. I have another child who is actually living in England right now, so unfortunately she was not in this picture. But you can see there, there's a common theme between myself and Brian is our little pets
Our little
that we
dogs.
have. So my little dog is called Ajax, and he's a Yorkshire Terrier. And Brian.
And my little dog is a Pouchon. She's a mix between a toy poodle and a Bichon, and her name is Gigi. And y'all can see that she likes to be my hat every once in a while. So
this is us. This is your presenters for this session. And again, if you have any questions as we move through, please do not hesitate. We love questions, and we will hopefully get to answer them all for you. So before we move into the main role of the presentation, we have our next poll, and we kind of want to get some feedback to see what your role is in the Georges Pre-K program. So if you're a teacher, if you're an assistant teacher, if you are an administrator, please tell us what your role is. And if your role is an assistant teacher, when you type that in, type that all as one word with no space, and we will go ahead and see what the role is of everybody. So we've got some teachers, we have some administrators, paraprofessional, so the majority of us are teachers here. That's good. That's what we was hoping, that this target audience would be for our teachers, our assistant teachers, paraprofessionals, those of you that are in the classroom, because this particular presentation is going to go and start to look a little bit at the instrument that we'll be using and the requirements that we'll have for you. Let's see if we've got anybody else just joined us. Teachers, directors. Okay. And so we are going to move on. And one last poll real quickly. We just want to see... Oh, speech and language, SLP. We was wondering what that was. Speech and language pathologist. And so our last poll very quickly is just to give us an idea of where everybody is in terms of their experience with the Georges Pre-K program. I'd like to have a little bit of a look here to see where everybody falls on the scale of experience, and to let us know just kind of your knowledge base that will help as you come through the program and begin to receive technical assistance. Some movement here still on the... Okay, steadying out there.
Still going.
Okay, so it looks like the majority of us have 3 to 5 years. Quite a good amount has 10 plus years, and then we do have some teachers that are beginning teachers, so hopefully this will all be great information with you as you move forward in your teaching career, not only for Quality Rated but also moving forward. So we're going to jump right into what is Quality Rated, and some of you may already have had some assessors come out to your classrooms and conduct baseline observations. Some of you would have had us probably the week or two before the Christmas break. We came to, I think, 9 of our programs, and we conducted either 1 or 2 observations in classrooms using the instrument to really be able to help gather some information as we begin to look at the technical assistance for the program. But some of you may be wondering just what is Quality Rated, and what will this mean for you and the children that you work with every day. So we want to take a few minutes just to explain to you what Quality Rated is, and then how it's going to be used within the Georges Pre-K program. So quality rated is what we call a tiered rating and improvement system. So when you think about rating systems, those of you that may like to go out to eat quite frequently like I do, you may often look on Yelp or Urban Spoon and kind of see, you know, what's everybody else saying about this restaurant.
Or Triple D.
Triple D. Hotels, you might be looking for the diamonds. And so pretty much in service-related industries, the public is kind of pushed towards looking to a rating to determine the best place that they would like to frequent. And so the same thing is true in a quality rating and improvement system. And so once providers have received a rating, then it allows families a means to determine the best fit when they're searching for early care and education settings for their children. So Quality Rated was primarily launched back in 2012. And it was targeted at childcare, the childcare sector of Georgia's early care and education system. However, once Georgia received the Early Learning Challenge Grant, the third round of Race to the Top, we had the ambitious goal that all Georgia's children would be served in high-quality programs, regardless of which sector they was actually attending programs in. And so that included Georgia's pre-K programs, it included Head Start programs, children that are attending programs on military facilities are able to participate. And so basically we'd like to have the opportunity for every program, no matter where they're located, every child, no matter what sector they're in, to have the opportunity to be served in a high-quality program. And so the quality rated allows that recognition of programs so that families can reach out and look to see where they would like to go. The other thing about the quality rated program is it does give providers, teachers, directors a way to really look at their programs, really getting down to everything that happens within their facility to see what areas they can make improvements on, to see what level of quality they would like to strive to. Once the program has been completed, programs will be assigned a quality designation level, which is designated by stars. A lot of you may be familiar with a 5-star system in a lot of other service sectors. However, our quality rated program in Georgia is actually a 3-star system. So we have 1, 2, or 3 stars, which denote the level of quality that has been attained within the system. The other thing about quality rated is we like to say it is a journey, not a destination. And so it is very difficult to receive the 3 stars, with that being the top designation. And so there is a lot of work that has to be done in order to meet that designation. And so we are going to talk a little bit about how you meet that quality designation and how you can actually achieve those 3 stars. And so Quality Rated is a program that is actually two large pieces that work together to form one particular system. And so one of the things that we look for is what we call evidence of structural quality. And structural quality is those things that provide the foundation or the underpinning within a facility that allow quality experience to go on in the classroom. So things like ratios, teachers' pay, your lesson plans, the health and safety of the facility. These are all things that go into the structural side of things. And so in Quality Rated, how we collect that evidence is through an online portfolio, which we'll speak about in just a moment. The online portfolio is documentation that is uploaded and submitted and then receives points based on the evidence. And then the second part is the actual demonstration of process quality. And process quality means the experiences and everyday interactions that children receive within the actual classroom setting. So process quality are those things that are observable and measurable and allow us to come into the classroom with the instrument that has been chosen to really look and see everything that the children are experiencing on a daily basis. And then points are awarded based on the average score that the program receives. Those 2 points are combined together along with some additional bonus points that programs may be able to receive if they have some national accreditations, and then a star rating is determined at the end of that. So we're going to talk just a little bit about the electronic portfolio. And so for most of you that are classroom teachers, the two standards that will probably interest you the most, because these are the ones that you are actually going to have the most input with, are going to be Standard 1 and Standard 4. Standard 1 is looking at staff qualifications and training, as well as your enrollment in the Professional Development Registry. And so as pre-K teachers, and I believe assistant teachers, are all enrolled in PDR as per requirements with the Georgia's pre-K program. And so what you'll want to do as soon as possible is, if you haven't had a chance to go into the PDR recently, is you'll want to go in there and make sure everything is updated. So make sure that the facility or the school that you are currently teaching in is the school that you have selected as your place of employment. You'll want to make sure that if you have any additional training that you have taken over the past several months has been updated in PDR and that you've received credit for that.
Unless, if you're not in PDR, if we just want to get you in the PDR system, just make sure that the first thing you do, I mean, the majority of all of you should already be in Professional Development Registry, but as certified teachers, the only thing you're going to be required to have is your certificate information from your Georgia Professional Standards Commission teaching certificate. So you'll put that in, and that will instantly level you. Assistant teachers, it should be the same for you as well. You should go put that information in, and it will instantly level you. If you choose to put some of your previous training you've had, whether that be through best practices, through Georgia State, or maybe you're going back to college, assistant teachers, maybe you're going back to college and you have some college courses, you can put that information in. However, if you do not, it will not finalize until you send a transcript. So my advice to you is, if you have a certificate, just to get in the system and get it done, I would just put in your certificate information so it will instantly level you, and then spend some time getting those transcripts and those kind of things sent in if you need to. Does anybody have any questions? I was trying to figure out how to show that.
Okay, so the other thing in Standard 1 that as classroom teachers you'll be required to submit to your administrators, will be a professional learning plan. Within the website, the quality rated website, your directors should be your administrators will be able to find some templates for the professional learning plans that will allow you to do some goal planning and goal setting in terms of training that you would like to take over the upcoming year. So Standard 1 is really an area that is going to be dependent on the staff and the teachers and the assistant teachers to make sure all of those things are up to date. The other standard that is going to be particularly reflective of the classroom teachers is going to be Standard 4, and that is because part of the requirement there is uploading lesson plans. And so I know that everyone is already writing lesson plans in accordance with Georgia Pre-K standards. The one thing that our lesson plans look at is that you have an alignment with GELS, which I would assume that you are too. Yes. In Georgia Pre-K. And then we also look for individualizing in your lesson plans for the children that you may have additional needs or special needs, that those individualizing is going to be met within that.
And the majority, of course, the majority of you are all Georgia Pre-K teachers, so you are going to use one of our approved templates. You have a choice of 5 templates on our website, which I'm sure you're all using one of those templates, and of course you're using a small group template and all that. If you are using one of the approved right from the start Georgia Pre-K templates, then you are going to hit all of these main requirements for Standard
4. Yes. The other items in some of the other standards include the child health and nutrition and physical activity, which is Standard 2. Requirements within that standard do include CPR and first aid certification. So if some of you in your schools are not required to have that certification, that might be some additional training that your administrators might think of helping you achieve in order to be able to meet the requirements in that standard. Standard 5 looks at ratios, and this will be something that your administrator will do for 1 day a week. They get to pick 1 day prior to the portfolio being submitted, and they will come in every hour and take ratios, which again with Georgia's Pre-K is pretty easy. You would be earning maximum ratio points with the ratios that you have with the 2 to 11, 1 to 11, 2 to 22 children. So as long as you're maintaining that, you will be good on that. So as I mentioned, the electronic portfolio, it does help programs to organize all of that electronic and supporting documentation, and that will be uploaded. So primarily it'll be the role of your administration or whoever has taken the lead role for putting the portfolio together. It will not be individual teachers going in and uploading. You'll have a point person within each program that will actually be doing that, but they will be coming to you and asking for a certain documentation to upload. And so once all of that information has been uploaded, then the portfolio is submitted electronically. And once that submission occurs, that is the time for some triggering devices to happen here at Quality Rated. And so typically the way this works is that the portfolio comes to us electronically, and then a team of assessors is assigned to come and conduct the observations, and then we have another team of assessors here at the main office that actually begin to score the portfolio documentation, because as you remember, there's two parts to this process. And so the assessment process looks a little bit like this. Once the team has been assigned, the program that is being assessed will be notified. Your administrator will receive an email, and they will be allowed to select up to 5 blackout days. And these days are days that are not typical for your program. So these are not days that pre-K is closed, because obviously if you're closed, we wouldn't be there. But these might be days, let's say you've got parent conferences going on, you've got photo day, you've got grandparents day, whatever it is, the children are in the facility, but it would just not be a typical day, and so would not be a good day for our assessors to come and see a typical day in your classroom. So your administrator will give us those 5 blackout days that we will not come and conduct. And so the day that we do come and conduct will be a random day. You will not be notified of the day in advance. So that's a little bit different than when we did our baselines. The baselines, we had pre-selected days that we could come, and we had your administrators pre-select the classroom teachers. With the actual final process, you will not know the exact day. There will be a window, but you will not know the exact day. We will assess in 1/3 of the classrooms. So that means for your Georgia's pre-K classrooms, we will assess 1/3 of them. We will also, that does include if you have inclusion, but we will also assess one of your special ed classrooms if that's applicable to your program. The observations will be randomly selected, so you will not know when we come to your school which particular classroom will be coming in to conduct the observation, and nor will the assessors until they get there. The observation is a 3-hour observation, so those of you that already had us in your classrooms for baselines, we thank you very much for allowing us to come and spend 3 hours with you and gather all that baseline information. But the observation does take place over 3 hours, and so one of the things that the assessors will need to know before they come to your program is they will ask your administrator for a copy of the schedule for all of your classrooms, so that we can see when children arrive and when the bulk of the learning is going on in those classrooms. Because one of the things that we do need to see is that children have center time, an hour of center time, and that they have access to those learning materials as well as engaging interactions from the staff. And so we want to make sure that we're there at the time when these things are happening. We also need to be able to see some gross motor time during that 3-hour, as well as a meal service. So there's a lot of things going on. Typically we come in the morning, because that's usually when most programs have their morning meetings. They have center time, they have maybe some outdoor time, and then we can also stay and see some of their lunchtime. So we will be there for 3 hours. The assessors are very much in the background. They try to be a fly on the wall as much as possible. They are there to basically record everything they see and hear. So they will be using a tablet to be taking copious notes on, so that they can adequately score each one of the indicators that they'll be looking for. Those of you that have a copy of the instrument, you'll be able to look through and see all of the indicators and items that the assessors will be looking for. They do not ask any questions. They do not speak with the children. They do not speak with the teachers. So they really are there to not affect the outcome of the observation as much as possible, and really do try to melt into the background.
It's going to be very similar to what you're used to as pre-K teachers with your class observations. You know, as consultants, when we come in to do a class observation, we introduce ourselves to the teacher, we introduce ourselves to the assistant teacher, and then we get started. And then it's a cycle of four cycles of 20-minute observations. Ends up being around 2 hours. And then we say thank you and have a great day, and we don't give you any feedback. That is going to be the same way with this ECERS instrument. They'll come in, they'll be there for 3 hours, they will complete the observation, and they'll say thank you, have a great day. You will not get feedback that day. So they won't be able to tell you, well, you can't say, well, how did I do? What are my areas of? They're not going to be able to give you any feedback. So I do have all the baseline information that what we've done before Christmas, and I'm going to be using that information to develop a technical assistance plan on how we're going to address any areas of concern that we saw from the baseline. Okay?
Once the observation had been completed, then, as Brian said, the assessors will actually leave the program. They'll complete their scoring and write their report, and then the points will be awarded based on the average score of each facility. So if you only had one classroom assessed, then you'll receive points for that one classroom, what the average score was. If you had 2 or more, then it will be the average of those classrooms that will be that score that will go towards your process quality points. So some of you may be wondering, what is this ECERS-3 instrument, and just what do you need to know, and what is in there? I do want to let you know that we will be conducting a series of webinars where we will explore the instrument a lot more in depth than we're going to look at it today. But we did just want to give you the opportunity to have an overview, to understand why this instrument was selected and why this is the one that we feel in quality rated is the best instrument for us to look at quality in classrooms. And so the ECERS-3 draws on research evidence, professional values, and practical knowledge in order to help define quality. And the original ECERS was actually developed they developed it over 40 years ago in the 70s, and the first edition was actually published in 1980 from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, the Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute. And so the ECERS itself went through one major revision in 1996, which was the ECERS-R, so some of you may or may not have familiarity with the ECERS-R. And ECERS-3 was created in a response to meet a need for a complete overhaul and revision in both terms of content and administration of the particular scale. So the scale itself is somewhat new to quality rated. It's new to Georgia in terms of making that transition to programs that have already been in quality rated for a while. For the Georgia's pre-K pilot, though, this is the instrument that we will be using, and so this should hopefully be much more in line with the philosophy and the pedagogy of Georgia's pre-K program, whereas ECERS-R did have some problems there.
The ECERS-3 is really going to put a lot more on interactions, which I think you're very familiar with.
So when you start to look at the ECERS-3, one of the things that you might be curious about is just what is in this particular instrument. So there are 6 subscales within the instrument that look at different areas of the classroom. Within those 6 subscales, there are 35 items, and within those items are 468 indicators. So the indicators are those discrete items that we're actually scoring yes or no to, and that altogether they give us a very comprehensive global definition of quality that has been assessed through observation in the classroom. The reason that we're showing on this screen that there are 5 new language and literacy items, 3 new math items, and 5 new interaction items is because this is the area of the scale that was really beefed up in the most current revision. And so you can see there just how many indicators actually address all of these areas of learning for young children. So these are going to be some areas, as Brian pointed out, much greater emphasis on language, literacy, print recognition, interaction, use of math in everyday, understanding written numbers, individualized teaching and learning. And so these are the things that hopefully we get a chance to see how well you guys are able to achieve that in this pre-K program. Okay, at this point we are going to do another quick poll, and we would like to see how many of you may have some knowledge or some familiarity with the ECERS-3. So if this is your first introduction, then you can type or text A. If you may know a little bit about a previous version, maybe the ECERS-R, please type or text B. If you have some experience with ECERS-3, type or text C. And if you feel that you're very familiar, then type or text D, and we will see what the outcome is of this particular one. Okay, so it looks like the vast majority of you, this is an introduction to ECERS-3, so that's good that everybody is new to this instrument, so you should be very excited to get your hands on the book, and hopefully all of you will have a copy in your classroom. Each of your program administrators was given a copy when they came to our orientation session back before Christmas, and so hopefully they will either be purchasing some additional copies for each of you to have, or they'll be sharing the copy that they have with all of the classroom teachers. It is vitally important that you do understand the instrument and you understand the indicators and items within the instrument, because there's nothing worse than being tested on information that you have no idea you're being tested over. So looks like we have a few people who do have some experience with ECERS-3. That's exciting to hear. And we have some who have a little bit of knowledge with ECERS-R, but don't know too much about ECERS-3. So that's really good to kind of see where we're at as we move forward with this particular instrument. So the reason that we use the ECERS-3 is because they have a really long track record and a proven ability to reliably measure process quality in the classroom. And so when we say that they've had a long track record and a long history, that is the original ECERS and the ECERS-R. They've been used in research projects both nationally and internationally, including Georgia's own early care study, as well as numerous state quality improvement initiatives. The vast majority of the other states that also incorporate a TQRIS into their early education system use some measure of environmental quality, the vast majority of them using their ECERS, along with the other instruments that are a part of this family of assessment tools, which would be the tools that we use in infant and toddler classrooms, as well as family childcare homes and after-school programs. Some states also incorporate the class into their QRIS, and other states have some additional instruments that they use. But the vast majority of them use the ECERS or the ERS primarily because of the long history and the proven history of using these scales. So as I had mentioned earlier, process quality is assessed primarily through observation, and it has actually been proven to be a more predictive of child outcomes and structural indicators. So what that means is when we actually see what children are experiencing, programs that have scored higher tend to have higher child outcomes than programs that just score higher on measures of structural quality. And so the scale defines the environment in a very broad sense, and it guides the assessor to actually observe the arrangement of space, both indoors and outdoors, that allows us to look at the materials and the activities that are offered to children. It allows us to look at supervision and interactions that occur in the classroom, and it also gives us the opportunity to look at the daily schedule, including routines and activities. Brian's just...
Sorry, y'all.
We're getting some feedback.
I had some people say that they were getting some feedback, and I just wanted to see if that helped. I was trying to turn your speaker volume down. You just want to turn your speakers down because it's picking up. It's like you're talking into the mic, and then it's picking back.
Okay.
Back. I don't know.
Mine's.
It wasn't doing it initially. Okay, is that still doing that, or is that better? Maybe that's better. Okay, so let's see where we'll.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's still doing it.
It's fine.
Okay. Okay, so using the ECERS-3 will give the assessors and the observers and then ultimately the programs an overall picture of what the quality is looking like that we currently provide, and then it allows programs to continue on then making decisions on changes that they can implement to improve their program. And so, as I mentioned a moment ago, there are 6 subscales that are scored within this particular instrument. We look at space and furnishings, personal care routines, language and literacy, learning activities, interaction, and the program structure. What we're actually looking for when you look at the global aspect of quality is that we all know that children have these 3 basic needs and that their environment needs to provide for these needs. And so the first one that we're looking for is that the environment provides protection of their health and safety. So that is why there are items within this instrument that will look at the safety of your playground. It'll look at the safety hazards within your classroom. It'll look to see if we're protecting health through sanitation and hand washing and meal preparation in terms of sanitary service for meal service. The second thing that children need, the second basic need, is the opportunity to build positive relationships. So that means we will be looking at those types of interactions that are able to go on in the classroom. Not only the staff-to-child interactions, but also peer-to-peer interactions so that children can learn from each other as well as from their teachers. The opportunities, the last one there. The last one there is the opportunity for stimulation and learning from appropriate experiences. And so this means that we'll be looking at those materials that the children have access to, but not only are the materials accessible on a shelf, but what are the staff actually doing to engage children in the use of those materials? What kind of encouragement are they using to try new materials? What kind of learning activities are they providing for the children? And so these 3 basic components of quality manifest themselves in very tangible forms within the environment, through the curriculum, through the schedule, through the supervision and interactions. And so these are all the things that we can observe and that we'll be looking for as the assessors spend those 3 hours within your program. And so if you have the opportunity to have one of the scales with you, if you turn to any of the pages, you're going to see that this is a 7-point scale. And so there are some words above 4 of the 7 points. And these indicate to us the quality levels in terms of once an item has been scored, will determine what the quality level is of that particular item. And so anytime you see a score of 1 being given for an item, that means that there's something going on within that item which actually could compromise a child's health or development. And so those are things that when you see those indicators that fall at that 1 level, you would want to be able to read those indicators and say, no, we don't do this, I can answer no to this. You do not want to say a yes at something that is providing inadequate levels of care. Once you move up the scale, you can see that we move to the minimum, good, and excellent level. You can see here on the screen at what types or dimensions of quality are generally considered to be within each of those columns. So if you have an indicator that falls at the 3 level, then that's generally going to be something that is providing for the basic kind of levels of custodial type care. So it will be very kind of minimal. It'll be we're just doing what we need to do to keep children safe. And generally, a lot of the indicators that fall at this level will be those things that would be required by state licensing. Even though you guys are not licensed facilities, these would actually be indicators that for childcare facilities would be covered by licensing. It's not until you get to the 5 level where we begin to see basic dimensions of developmental care. So these are those indicators where we can say that what we're seeing that the children are experiencing are at the good level and really help them develop and increase their optimal outcome. And then the 7 level are those things that are really the icing on the cake. This is where we really see high levels of individualized care, personalized care, really those teachable moments, really meeting each child where they are and extending their learning. And so as you have a chance to look in the book, I would encourage you to read across the indicators so that you can begin to understand and really begin to do some self-evaluation on your classrooms to really be able to answer those yes-no questions. Always remembering at the 1 level, as much as possible, you want to be able to say no. And at the 3s, the 5s, and the 7s, you really want to be able to say yes. When we do our next webinar in the series, we'll go into more depth on the scoring method, and we'll talk about how to score, and we'll do some practice scoring. And then in addition to this, you'll also have the opportunity to do some online training with the ECERS-3, the Environment Rating Scale Institute, who publish the scales, to be able to do their online training with the instrument as well. So there'll be plenty of training opportunities to give you more in-depth information on how this instrument is actually scored.
And before we come back to that real quick, all right, and I know a lot of you teachers, I'm seeing you, and I can imagine what your facial expressions are doing right now. I'm sure that you're looking at those 5 and 7s and going, that's where we're going to be. We're going to be at 7s all the way, doggone it. I want you to understand that it's hard to get 7s across the board, okay? So just know that there's going to be sometimes there might be some areas on the scale when you start looking that you will not be able to get a 7, and that is okay. Okay?
It's an average. So again, it's when you think about an average, you kind of think about your college GPA.
Right.
At least that's the way I like to think of it. You know, English and history and geography, those were my subject areas where I excelled. Psychology, sociology. That's where I got all my A's and B's. When it came to math and economics, there were some C's in there. But overall, since everything is averaged out, you can afford to have a few C's in there. So when the authors wrote the instrument, they knew very well that nobody is going to be able to get 7s across the board. It is not written in order for people to get 7s across the board. So there's going to be some areas even within your facilities themselves, that you may not have any control over. So, for example, if your bathrooms are not in your classroom, it's going to make it harder for you to score 7s in those particular items that look at hand washing, because it's not, the facilities are just not there. So it's okay to get some of those lower scores on some items, but you just remember that overall we're striving to really look at the 5s to show that we are within the good range. And it is actually the score of 5s that is, in Georgia, is our 3-star rating. So your program has to have a 5 average, school-wide average, in order to receive the score of a 5. Okay, so we're just going to briefly go over the organization of the scale so you can get, if you don't have the book in front of you, you can get a little bit of a better idea of what this actually looks like. So if you remember, I told you the book is divided into subscales, and when I think of subscales, I like to think of when you go shopping and you've got your grocery list and you're going to go into the supermarket or the grocery store, and you know that you have to buy eggs and cheese and milk, and then you know that you have to buy tomatoes and apples and bananas. So mentally you make a picture of what your grocery store looks like, and you head to those aisles. So you're going to head to the produce aisle, you're going to head to the dairy aisle. And so when I think of subscales, that's what I think of is grocery store, because the subscale incorporates all those items that would actually belong in that place. So one of the...
Please repeat that. Average score of 5 equals what?
Oh, so we had a question. When I had mentioned a moment ago the average of a 5, what that is, if you remember when I said that in order to become quality rated, you have to look at the points that you receive on your portfolio and then the points that you receive on your ERS observation, which is the ECERS. And so in order to be a 3-star program, your ECERS average, so that means if it's one classroom, it's 1. If it's 2 classrooms, it's the average of 2, has to score a 5.0 or higher in order for it to be a 3-star rated program.
Overall. So that overall average comes from 6 different domains of the
subscales. Yeah,
yes,
those
6
subscales.
subscales.
The 6 subscales. So if your average after all those 6 subscales has been scored, and that's 468 indicators, then if your average is a 5
or more,
then you should be able to achieve the 3-star rating.
Right.
So going back to the organization, so the first subscale is space and furnishings, and we're just going to kind of drill down through one of the items within space and furnishings just so you can see how this works. Within space and furnishings, there is an item that is called room arrangement for play and learning, and so there are 6 other items within this particular subscale. The 35 that you see there is the items across the whole instrument. But the space and furnishing subscale actually has 7 actual items within that one. And so one of the items is the room arrangement for play and learning. And then what is going to be the most important for the staff and the teachers and assistant teachers to be looking at is the indicators, because the indicators is where the scoring occurs. And so that's where you see those indicators falling under the adequate, minimal, good, and excellent level. And so what that looks like is one of the indicators at 1.1 will say that the play areas are crowded. And so when we come into a classroom, if the room is somewhat on the small side, or all of your play areas are kind of located next to each other with not good defined pathways, and children cannot play very easily in those areas without treading on the toys and each other, and there's just no space, then we would have to say yes to that indicator, because that is something we don't want to see. And remember, we want to be able to say no at this level. We want to be able to say, no, they're not crowded, I can move on to the next level, and let's see what the next level says. If we can say no at 1.1, then we look at 3.1. And this asks us, are there at least 2 play areas that have sufficient space for the type of play encouraged by the materials? So as long as we can look around the room and see that there are 2 areas where children have the space that they need and play can progress, then we can score yes there and then move on up the scale. The good level, the difference between the 3 and the 5 is that we have pathways that do not interrupt play. So not only do we have areas, but we have our room arranged so that we have pathways that lead us to those areas, and generally those areas will be our interest centers. And they allow play to occur within those areas, and we're not seeing children having to play within the pathways, so that gives them the space that they need. And then at the 7 level, if we've been able to say yes at the 5 level, then we start to look at, well, what types of areas do you have within the classroom? We want to see if you have your noisy and your quiet areas separated from one another. And that's not just separation by furniture, because they're noisy, so noise travels over furniture, but we would actually look at the physical space, and we're making sure that our book area is not next door to our dramatic play or our block area. Block would want to see on the other side of the room.
And when you're thinking about those kind of things, sometimes when you're thinking about separating those quiet and noisy areas, you might want to consider using like your math and manipulative area or your science area, an area that would be a good transitional space between the two. So if you have your block area and then your reading area right next to blocks, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. So you might do your block area, then science, and your reading area. So there's some kind of cushion in there, because science can be a noisy center, but it can also be a quiet center depending on the activity that's going on. And you also know your children, so you want to do what's best for your kids.
And so within this particular item, which is room arrangement for play and learning, if those of you have a book, you'll be able to see that that is actually on page 19. Those of you that don't have a book, I want you to know that within this particular item, there are 15 different indicators, and those indicators are divided out amongst the 4 levels like you see here. And usually what you're going to find with the indicators is they build on the one previous. So what you'll see at indicator level 3 has built from what was at indicator level 1. And so basically the assessors will come in and they have to read every indicator within the scale and score every indicator. And again, that was 468 indicators that they will be scoring on their tablet, making lots and lots of notes so that they can justify their score either way, whether it's a yes or a no. I just mentioned to you a little while ago that in addition to the series of webinars that we'll be hosting, that will go a lot more in depth into this particular instrument, we also have the opportunity. We're very excited that through the pilot, the grant funding for this pilot, we are able to offer seats in the online training that looks at the Early Childhood Environment Rating Scale 3rd edition, and that is hosted by ERSI, which is the Environment Rating Scale Institute. That's the company that the authors formed when they left Frankfurter Ground and actually retired and are onto their second stint in life. And so the online training is hosted through their company. It's about a 5-hour training. And so your administrators will determine how best to actually achieve this training. It may be that they choose to do it as a staff meeting and do it the whole group.
Break it down into segments, so you might do 1 hour one day, and the next week you might do another hour.
Yeah, it's a 5-hour training, about a 5-hour training, and both myself and Brian have taken the training.
Yes, joy.
So you'll get to hear and see the authors of the instrument, and you'll get to see some sample videos, tutorial, and so you'll be getting to learn a little bit more about the instrument that's being used in your program.
And I would suggest
that y'all do it
all together.
I
So
would.
we might have at least do it all together.
Do it all together.
So you can talk about it.
You can talk about it. You can have discussions, and
that'll be good.
that'll be good.
So we will be following up with your program administrators with the registration information. So be looking for that in the next couple of days. We'll be purchasing the seats for you in this training, and then we'll send out that registration information to everybody so that they can get you registered. And it will just be registered in one person's name, but everybody will be able to kind of sit around and work as the training will be conducted. Multiple teachers will participate. The other training, in addition to the online training and our webinars, will be the free online professional development opportunities. Everybody should be familiar with Ollie.
Everybody should be familiar with Ollie,
yes.
But they also should be familiar with, how many of you are familiar with Ollie? If you're familiar with Ollie, raise your hand. And maybe I shouldn't use the acronym of OLLI. Maybe I should use the acronym of Online Learning Library Initiative. I'm not seeing a lot of hands go up. Okay, so let's try the next one. How many of you are familiar with Read Right from the Start? The Power of Language Training.
The Power of Language Training.
For that.
Raise your hands if you're familiar with that.
Ooh. Thank you, Ms. Kicklighter.
Thank you, Ms. Kicklighter.
Oh, look.
Thank you, Ms. Kendrick.
Thank you, Ms. Kendrick. Thank you, Ms. Woodcock.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Hey, not the whole boat. Well, this is good because this means there are learning opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
Free learning opportunities. The Read Right from the Start through Cox Campus actually offers 18 hours of free state-approved online training. And their training actually supports many of the items and indicators in ECERS-3. And so we actually conducted a crosswalk with the folks at Cox Campus to identify specific courses that will help provide the classroom teachers with the foundations necessary to improve the teaching skills and affect outcomes for children. So we do have a crosswalk that will be available to the program administrators to be able to help you target which training will be the most beneficial to you. And then, as we were saying, the Ollie is the DECAL's online training system. Also allows you to obtain state-approved training hours in a number of areas that will also help to prepare you for the rigors of ECERS-3 without really teaching to the test. So hopefully you will have the opportunity to benefit and take advantage of that training as you go through the pilot. Excuse me, we're almost coming to the end of our time, so I do want you to have access here to more information as we move forward in the pilot. You can absolutely check out our quality rated website, which is at qualityrated.decal.ga.gov. We also have the public-facing website, which is just qualityrated.org. This is the website usually that families are guided to when they're looking for programs that have become quality rated. You're also welcome to email our help desk, which is at qualityrated@decal.ga.gov. And then the other website that I'd really like you guys to become familiar with is the ECERS website. There is a lot of information and additional resources on the ECERS website pertaining to ECERS-3. There's lots of supplemental materials, there's lots of additional handouts. One of the things that you'll need to be aware of is additional notes for clarification. And so what these are is occasionally when assessors and users of the instrument have questions for the authors, they actually respond and they add additional clarifications to some of the indicators. So it gives you a little bit more background information, or if you're not exactly sure, well, what does that indicator mean? I'm not exactly sure that I'm understanding it. You'll see some additional notes and clarification there. Any final thoughts or questions, please go ahead and type those into the chat box for Brian. And then as we move, we have one last poll for everyone to participate in. And then we'll see if there are any questions come in before we end the session. We will be letting your administrators know when to sign up for the next webinar series. We will give you time to do the online training first, so hopefully you'll be able to achieve that in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll be looking at a second webinar series, which will give us a more in-depth look beginning at the ECERS. So our final question is, hopefully we taught you something new today that you did not already know. Maybe you didn't know how quality rated was scored. Maybe you didn't know that it consisted of an online portfolio and a on-site observation. And so let us know if there's something that you learned today and if you're excited to be a part of this pilot. We are very excited to have you be a part of the pilot, and yay, hopefully everybody's excited to be here.
Right, hopefully everybody's going to hit through. Yay, 100%. Yay.
Naysayers in the group.
Well, we say that right now, but I haven't seen anybody respond. Okay, so
one of the questions was
first of all, I want to apologize for the feedback. We're not real sure if it came out fine at the beginning. I don't know if it has something to do with the speakers, or I do know that this is my second time doing a webinar, and I feel like this one went a lot better than the first one. We started on time. One question is, will this webinar be recorded and available? Yes, the answer is yes. This webinar, as we are still speaking right now, it's still being recorded. Once we are finished, we will of course, convert that into a certain file, and then we are talking about where we're going to post that. Denise and I talked about either posting it on the Start website, possibly under pre-recorded webinars or pre-K page, or we may just post it to YouTube and let y'all go into YouTube and see the link that way. We will not be able to actually send the webinar and the video itself out via email because the file is too large. But once we do have it recorded and posted somewhere, I will send a link out to the project directors to let them know where it is, and then they can forward it on to the teachers. Does anybody else have any questions?
Okay, I think we're done with our first ever webinar for the Georgia's Pre-K standalone quality rated pilot. It's quite a mouthful to say. I appreciate everyone for attending today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you do with Georgia's youngest children. And please hopefully go and enjoy some lunch now before you get on with the rest of your day in training. So thanks everyone very much.